Microphone check 1 2 1 2. I do that, but I'm not a rapper. But what I am here to do today is to just try to share, I guess the effects of my anxiety. It caused me to do research. And, whenever we have a president or goings on that go against the things that I agree with or that seem a little traumatic, I began doing research. But it's been a while since I've done the type of research that I had to do, just trying to, I guess, fear mongering from the Democrats. And I do vote Democrat, but, in their hate and disdain for President Trump, they sound the alarms. And not that they are wrong this time, because Trump paused or tried to pause some programs that, are already approved by Congress and funds, already allocated to go out. And it was just disturbing because this affects people around the nation. And so, the journalist in me, that was my first degree, wanted to jump out. But then I said, no, stop. We're doing arts and entertainment. Stay focused. But then it just began to be too alarming. So I want to share some of the things that I have learned so that if it can possibly put someone's mind at ease, maybe you didn't get a chance to go through the research, or, maybe it was too stressful, I'll just get to the point, and I won't fearmonger. I'll just get to the point of what can and cannot happen and what I've learned, and hopefully it can set your mind at ease. So just a reminder, I'm Just Saying podcast is basically a hub. It's a place, like a coffee house, a place where people in the arts and entertainment can come and just speak whatever's on their mind. We know that mental health, like depression and as well as suicidal thoughts, haunt people in the arts and entertainment in really high numbers. A lot of it is because we just don't get the funding or the opportunities, or the competition is so high. And so because of that, wondering when your next job is coming, it becomes, really stressful, or deciding whether or not you're going to sell your soul just to be able to live your dream, a lot of it, just a lot, that and a lot more. And so because of that and more, we need a place, in my opinion, right? And I've taken action to do this podcast to offer a place for those in the arts and entertainment to come and just, speak about whatever's on their mind, to share their talent, tips, information that could help people who are new in the industry. And also, just for our own mental health, just to come in and discuss things we like, dislike, things that we think need to change, or just to discuss things and maybe, give some value and get some value, out of whatever topics we talk about. And so today, I want to talk about something that could really help those in the arts and entertainment. I know many of the people that I spoke to, they don't get into politics, and not even just the arts and entertainment, even some people who are into business or, academia. People are just very, probably before COVID, but especially since COVID, COVID, not Corvette. But since COVID, people have been really inundated with just being able to go to work and come home. And for anybody outside the U.S., I know a lot of people have a big interest in the U.S. and the things that are going on here, from celebrities to just everyday life and people and what's happening here. And so I just want to say, since 9/11, that was our first wake-up call. I think prior to that, we thought we were good. We didn't have to worry about certain things that, countries, around the world have to worry about when they're at war, or they have beefs, or, issues with other countries, or issues from within. We thought we were past civil wars and past, invasions and different things happening. And 9/11 was a wake-up call. And then when COVID hit, and I'm just naming the biggies, when COVID hit, it was just like, whoa, Nelly, because, the last epidemic around the world was in 1918, or at least in the United States, it was 1918. And so, that, for many generations, people who had never even thought about such a thing happening, it was a lot. The suicide rate was high, whether they attempted or actually went through with it. The worry was very high. And you can tell it was a frenzy because people ran to social media and really kind of lost it. And so because of that, many of us are, and probably around the world, not just the US, we are just, trying to maintain, do what we need to do to be able to, pay our bills, to live and have some quality of life. And so when things happen that, interrupt that, we get nervous and we get concerned, and we end up, like myself, having to come and say, okay, what's going on, and do some research. Some do research, some turn to others who've done the research. I do both. I'm not here as a journalist. Like I said, that was my first degree, but I'm not here as a journalist. I am here as someone in arts and entertainment, writer, director, producer, who has a podcast that I made, just for people in the arts and entertainment to come and, like I said, get value or give value. And because I've recently had a moment of fear because of these programs being threatened to be not just paused, but changed, and grant money and loans and everything, that could really hurt people. And from within, not like someone from the outside is threatening us. This is from within. And some things I agree with and some things I don't. Review and look into programs I agree with. Why not? Always good to be better. But snatch the rug from under American citizens who pay their taxes for certain things? No, I don't like that. And it had began to stress me out. And so before I allowed myself, like, I was starting to feel the palpitations in my chest. I was starting to feel the anxiety. And then there were other people like myself, some in entertainment, but some not. And we were texting each other. We were giving links to YouTube videos and social media videos. And my people who I was communicating with, they weren't giving like crappy videos that were fear-mongering. They were giving actual facts, words from Trump's mouth, words from the media, and not, the type of things on the media that, again, fear-monger, but actual situations. And we just were nervous. I mean, we were already nervous about, for the people in California, because we're like, well, are we going to have a California after this? Like, what's going on? And we're concerned about them, and not just California, but prior to that, different states had a bunch of fires, even in New Jersey and North Jersey, and I think in South Jersey, we had a bunch of fires. So you try to ignore the conspiracy theories for that. And, next thing you know, we're worried about what's going to be stripped from us. Where are our tax dollars going? We want to have a say, right? We don't want our tax dollars going. We don't mind it going into science because it only helps us, but we don't want it to go into wars. We don't want it to go help everybody around the world, but we have homeless in the streets. We have people who are hungry. We have children that don't have a good education. We don't want history swiped from schools and pretending things didn't happen. It's bad enough the books barely mentioned slavery and different things in it. And when it did, it didn't give enough details. But then you're going to take that little bit out. It's like, we don't like those things, but we can do the just do to make those things right. But when you start talking about, bad enough we're paying a lot of money, just to eat. And, God forbid, if you want to eat healthy, eat organic foods that don't have chemicals. But then when you start fighting with a man who wants to come in and change the FDA, even went to a whole other party just for the opportunity to get Americans on the right track. I'm not saying I agree with everything R.F. Kennedy, speaks about, but when it comes to dyes in food and poisons and all of that kind of thing, I agree with it needs to change. And you get people, because they're in a different party, fighting with him to do that instead of saying, okay, well, can we agree on, these terms or whatever? And I don't know if they can do that, but I'm sure it beats just leaving things the way they are and just telling your kids, don't eat cornflakes, don't eat Kellogg's, don't eat, let's just fix it. It's annoying. It's a lot going on. And so, what this podcast is about today is just me giving some information based on the research that I've done, just so that we can try to understand. And I hate to talk about politics, but because this is an arts and entertainment channel, but it is a channel or a podcast that's, based on people in entertainment coming to get value, give value, or talk about their fears, as well as give tips and all that good stuff, which I said already. But what I'm going to do today is I'm going to, for those, if listen, I'm going to put out some arts and entertainment episodes, for those who are only interested in that. But if you have been paranoid and nervous and just don't feel like doing the research and the homework, then I've done some of it, for you, just so that we can get an idea on what things the president can change and do and what things that he cannot. That being said, let's keep in mind that some things that are normally not done a certain way have been done. So I want to say this is etched in stone, but if he can say something and get the House and the judicial system to back him, then not just him, any president, then they will flip the script on us. But as history would have it, we're supposed to go by the Constitution. That being said, recently, and I hope everybody skipped ahead if they didn't want to hear all of that. But I just needed to kind of set the plateau. But anyway, recently, President Trump wanted to pause the paying out of the different programs that have already, I'm using the word allocated. They use another word. That's just my brain. I can't go by their terms. But basically, funds were allocated already that Congress approved to be paid, like Medicaid, Section 8 vouchers, Head Start, child care, Meals on Wheels. And those programs, the whole system was actually paused. And those departments or agencies that tried to go in from different states to get the monies to pay out were not able to get in. And they communicated with one another. And I guess the media got involved. And so when the media got involved, then the president's media person, I forget her title, she came on and she spoke very, in my opinion, kind of rude. I don't mind anyone being stern and firm, but, this was a whole nother element, which I didn't understand. But in any case, she came on and she swore up and down that they were not, that it was only paused so that, Trump could see if the monies that were going out were aligned with, his policies. And I guess the emphasis she put on it was like as if that was fine. That was okay. Look, this is the president, this is what he wants, this is what we're going to do. Suck it up, face it. We're not cutting any programs. We're only stopping monies that's going out to other countries. But the programs here are fine. And then she was getting aggravated, like, are you not listening to me? I just said that. And in some ways, in the beginning, I was kind of saying like, yeah, she did just say that. But then I started thinking about it like, no, let's not be gullible. People say many things out the side of their mouth, but I tried to stay in the middle because like we all said, many of us, let's just give it a chance. This is who the president is. Let's not knock him. Let's stop badgering and talking negative, and let's, give him a chance. Hopefully he wants to leave behind a great legacy of actually helping the people so that everybody, whether they voted for him or not, will say that he did make the country great. I don't know about again, but let's hope that he will take steps to make the country great. And so I'm trying to stay in the middle. So I'm trying to give her a chance and speak. Meanwhile, my adrenaline is starting to build up and I have to keep knocking it back down. Like, no, let's not be like them. Let's give her a chance. Let's give everything a chance. And lo and behold, later that night on the media, I hear Chicago mayor and the deputy mayor and their accounting. I guess I forget what that department is. I'm going to say accounting department. Or either it was attorney general. I can't remember. But and he said he worked with the Trump first administration and everything was fine. But this was different, and that lies were told, and that they did likely do something because many states could not get in and could not pay out. And they said that they didn't do that and it was a coincidence or whatever. And then they said that basically that she was lying when she stated that they were not going to cut those other programs, that they were going to try to cut those programs, and that's why they stopped it or whatever. And so they just wanted it to be known and not, I guess other states were afraid to speak up. In Chicago, they let it be known they're not no punks. A lot like New York and, certain other states, they'll stick their chests out, like Texas or whatever. But in this case, I only heard it from Chicago. They were like, no, that's not true. And we're not going to let that fly. And so that just made me nervous. I think that's what really started saying like, oh, God, so we can't even take his media person. I'll remember her title, but I really want to get through this. I said we can't even take what she says, and she's the spokesperson. So I'm like, oh boy. So I start watching other channels, and there are people, I can tell they really do not like Trump. Some of them are hoping that, he will turn a new leaf and do what's right. Some of them are saying that he won't because he pretty much got the people behind him who are yes people. And so whatever he says will go. He won't have anybody, challenging him or trying to at least teach him and inform him. And so we're going to get things like this where he'll say he's going to do certain things that he doesn't even realize that he cannot do. So it's hard. Who do you listen to? And these people are economists. These people are professionals in their field. And so they pretty much know what they're talking about. But again, I'm trying to stay that middle course because I am praying that folks really would rather go out. I hate to say go out in style, but, be the best president ever. You don't have to keep saying it, but you can be it, and we'll say it for you. So this is what I'm praying for. So in any case, in my anxiety, and I hadn't gotten to a point where I was exuding or having anxiety, but I felt it starting to build because I'm going from channel to channel to channel to channel, and I'm listening to everybody. I'm not listening to these podcasters and radio shows unless they're telling me something just happened, but I'm listening to economists and, other politicians who, were once in office and who are shedding light. I'm listening to the people who know. And it was just getting me so nervous that I said, you know what? What I did was I started going to ChatGPT. Now, my ChatGPT, I pay to, get the extended version. And so I have named my ChatGPT. My ChatGPT's name is Chatty Patty. And I say that because when I ask her a question, she just rants. So I call her Chatty Patty. All right, so I asked Chatty Patty some questions, and she gave me the answers, and it was like a fungus. One thing led to another, and it just kept growing with all these questions. And I said, I realized how scared I am. Like, I may not be paranoid, but I feel like I have cause, if I wanted to be, and so then I said, well, who else is like that? And again, I always reflect back to my peers in arts and entertainment, because it's noted that we have one of the highest rates of depression, anxiety, mental health issues, and suicide, suicide thoughts or actual suicide attempts and actual suicide. And I don't want that. And I'm like, so let me give some information so that we can be aware. So now, in my talking to Chatty Patty, in my asking of questions, I noticed that it was a defending of President Biden and more so a fact based with Trump. But I happen to know certain things that happened under President Biden. And so I challenged Chatty Patty by saying, well, okay, so here's an example. Chatty Patty was telling me that no, that Biden had, given a raise to Social Security and to other, areas versus Trump, who is talking about cutting things or cutting benefits and so on. And so I said, yeah, well, but what about the fact that this is what I said. I said, under Biden, there were reductions in Section 8. I said, will Trump likely reduce more? I said, also, with Trump being a real estate mogul, why would he not, make his program flourish? Why would he not make the HUD Section 8, flourish, as corporations like his would benefit, right? He has to know people. I mean, I know he probably makes the bigger money from the millionaires, but pennies count too. They add up, although they're not pennies, because let's say a person's rent is, let's say $2,000, then the tenant under Section 8 has to pay 30%. And so the Section 8 has to pay the 70%. And so that's $600 that, and we're not talking about the deductions like medical or whatever, but just in general of $2,000, the recipient of the Section 8 voucher would have to pay $600, and then $1,400 a month they would pay $600 a month, and then $1,400 a month would be paid by Section 8. And so why, if you have a complex, like where I live, there's a complex of over 200 apartments. So if you have a complex and you wanted to say, you know what, let me start, let me start renting out to Section 8. Like, to me, in other words, this is a good business sense. And I would think that him being a real estate mogul, that he would know that, and I guess this is what I'm saying in short. Like Elon Musk, they said most of his money making comes from contracts with the United States government. So why wouldn't Trump see that there's money to be made for others in real estate? You see what I mean? That could get these, contracts and make money. That was just my line of thinking. And so Chatty Patty said during Joe Biden's administration, there was a focus on increasing the funding, right? And that he had awarded $100 million in grants to boost housing supply and lower housing costs. In contrast, the current administration, President Donald Trump, has taken steps that could lead to a reduction in housing, notably a recent memorandum directed at federal agencies to temporarily pause Section 8 and other programs, which is what we mentioned earlier. So I got the impression, and you can stick up for Biden if you want, but I got the impression that Chatty Patty is on the side of Biden. And so what I asked, that my next question was, Biden did cut certain items because, again, Chatty Patty said that he had given $100 million to increase, the Section 8 and certain other programs. So I said Biden did cut items in his I said Biden did cut certain items. For example, although there was an increase in market value, they changed the policy so less medical and other items could be deducted in calculating the Section 8 voucher recipients' contribution, resulting in paying more in their 30%. So even though they still may pay 30% of whatever the rent is, the fact that they're not able to deduct as much as they used to, because Biden had changed the numbers, they will be paying more. And it could be a lot more, because they went from, I think the deductions went from being 3% to 10%, not in the favor of the recipient of the voucher. And so Chatty Patty said, "You are correct in noting that recent policy changes have affected how medical and disability-related expenses are considered in calculating a family's contribution towards rent under HUD programs, specifically the Housing Through Modernization, effective January 1st, 2024. It increased the threshold by deducting reimbursement medical and disability-related expenses from 3% to 10%. This change means that only a portion of the expenses exceeding 10% of the annual income can be deducted, potentially leading to the recipient paying a higher rent." So don't take the side of Biden and say, no, give us the whole kit and caboodle, weigh the whole thing out. I don't know if that was a flaw with ChatGPT, or if, like I said, it seemed to be kind of leaning more towards, well, Biden did this and Trump did that, but more in favor of Biden. So that's what I was thinking. But then guess what happened? Chatty Patty beat me in the argument, because what she said was, while this adjustment was implemented during the Biden administration, it is important to note that HOTMA, HOTMA, which is an acronym for something, it didn't tell me what, was enacted in 2016 prior to President Biden's taking office. The recent changes are part of the Act's scheduled implementation and are not directly attributed to the policy decisions made by Biden administration. In other words, these are things that Trump had set in office prior to him leaving. And again, Chatty Patty won that point, ding, ding, ding. But I just didn't understand why Trump would do that, because if you are I guess if you're trying to be fair, you're trying to be fair. You don't do things that would, help your, background or whatever your industry is. But it helps the people as well as granted, I guess they would get paid it regardless, whether it came from the people or whether it came from not the administration, but, HUD. But if you make it easier on the people, they're more inclined to vote for you, right? So I didn't understand that. But I do remember even Obama, when he was president, saying we're all going to have to contribute. So I guess that's what that is. I don't know. It may seem like going from 3% to 10% is not a big deal. But when you think about the cost of living and the price of food, and I guess Trump wouldn't have known that back then because that was probably around the time or maybe right before. Yeah, that was right before the cost of living had increased, because remember it happened over COVID. So I guess it was before the prices went crazy. So he wouldn't know that. So we can't knock him for that. I'm not one of those people that knock a person just because I didn't vote for them or whatever. I can only knock you for the things that you do. And he didn't know that. So, okay. Okay, and so by the way, the HOTMA is Housing Opportunity Through Modernization Act. And it was, I guess, implemented in 2016. All right, so what it did was it introduced changes to how medical and disability-related expenses are calculated in the housing assistance program. Specifically, it was increasing the threshold of deductions and reimbursements for medical and for the disabled. So I guess it didn't affect those people who had Section 8 vouchers who were not disabled. So I asked Chatty Patty, could President Biden have overturned what Trump said, what he put in office? And of course, as we see now, like what Trump is doing, he's trying to stop things and change it according to his policy, not according to the policy of the president that was there in office before him. And, of course, what I've learned is that no, he cannot. He can't, because Congress had already signed off and approved it into law. And so Biden could not say, okay, I disagree with what Trump did, let me overturn it. That was just not, there's certain things that I guess the president can come in and overturn or change. But once Congress signs something into law, it is what it is, and it has to go forth. And so let's just pray that the judges on the Supreme Court, let's just pray that they, agree or just stick to the Constitution and not try to change things. I don't know how they could, but I'm not betting my dime on anything, in this, I feel like anything can change, but let's just pray that they have, more of an ode and dedication to the Constitution than they do of either someone who's Republican or someone who selected them to be in office. So I asked Chatty Patty, why did the judge temporarily pause this instead of making it a ruling that, no, Trump, this cannot happen, or, based on, your role as president, you cannot do that. And basically what Chatty Patty told me is that, let me just read what she said. When a federal judge issues a temporary injunction, it serves to maintain the current state of affairs known as the status quo until a more thorough examination of the legal issues can occur. This approach ensures that an immediate action such as the implementation of a funding freeze do not cause irreparable harm before the court has the opportunity to fully assess the legality of the executive action in question. So basically, had they taken any other course, Trump could have taken certain actions that could have made Congress have to come back to the table and, do a vote or whatever. And so the way that it was done, it keeps everybody still getting paid every month. Those money, I don't know why the money just doesn't go to the states like in the big lump. If they put in, for this amount, right? I just thought that they just sent, all right, New Jersey, so you guys have X amount in debt or bills or whatever here. But I guess it's more of an accountant thing where you have to put in some type of acquisition or something for the amount that you need for the bills last month, I guess, and then they give it to you. I guess that's how it sounds. But in any case, the way that she went about it, it allowed for the bills to still keep getting paid while the judges go and convene and discuss it. Doesn't mean that they're going to go against Congress and against what the Constitution says, because the Constitution says that it's Congress that decides, where monies are spent in legislation and so forth. But it's not saying that they're going to overturn anything. It just was the way to do it so that nothing else can supersede and jump, I guess, ahead and change things from the way they're supposed to be done. So, in other words, it was a strategic move by Judge Lauren Alican, in which she issued a temporary injunction to halt the freeze. And the temporary injunction is not a final ruling on the legality of the executive action. Instead, it temporarily suspends the action to prevent possible negativity or possible negative consequences while the court conducts a detailed examination of the case. So this is a process that, basically ensures that all legal arguments are thoroughly examined and considered, before they make a definitive decision. But the decision was basically already made because it is in the Constitution. So let's just pray that it plays out exactly like that. In a perfect world, this and other situations, if they step out of bounds because, there's nobody around him that knows his, the lengths that the president can go to talk to him and remind him, let's just pray that this is what always happens, where they step in and they say, okay, we're going to reconvene. We're going to convene on this. And then they come out and say, okay, because of the Constitution, President, you're not allowed to do that. And let's just pray that that's how it just always ends up being. And not that someone says, well, you can't, but because of certain things, if you want to maneuver around and make it happen, then you can do this. Unless it's something that's going to help the people or help the country or, help the military or someplace that's really needed, something that's really needed for the nation, I would not want them to go around it because circumstances change everything. And some circumstances we could face in the near or, far future could make us have to come back and say, all right, that was cool for then. But right now we're in jeopardy. So, you know what I mean? So, but for now, I don't foresee it. If we mind our business and don't dip in other countries' business or try to go and mess around, in their situations, I don't foresee a reason why the way we have things shouldn't flow, and I'm not talking about FDA and their hot mess, approving dyes and poisons. I'm not talking about things that we know need to change, but I just mean as far as, anything that could come up. So my brain was really going because this was like 3 a.m. and I said, how was it a complex legal question or issue when you stated, this is me talking to Chatty Patty. Yes, I talked to ChatGPT. So I said, how was it a complex legal question or issue when you stated the president cannot handle the purse, that it is Congress' job and it was already allocated for payment? Shouldn't it just be that the president was told that he does not have the power to do such? And then Chatty Patty says, you're making a logical and legal sound point. Under the Empowerment Control Act of 1974, the president cannot unilaterally withhold or delay funds that have been appropriated by Congress. So why didn't the judge simply rule out, that Trump, had to pause or that he couldn't pause the federal funding? Now, there were several reasons, but some of them made me say, okay, go no further. One of them was that courts need to do judicial due process. So that was like, okay, whatever. But I still kind of felt like, no, you could have just told them. The next thing was that the judge may want to fully understand how the executive order was issued, which agencies would be affected, and whether there were any procedural loopholes the administration used. If the executive order was vaguely worded and selectively enforced, the court may need more time to determine the extent of the violation. That one, I was like, whatever, no, that didn't move me. So the next thing, which is what I mentioned earlier, is that the judge knew that issuing a temporary injunction ensures that critical funding continues immediately while avoiding a potential drawn out legal battle, which could disrupt, services like housing, healthcare, and education. So yeah, you wouldn't want that. Like, while you guys think about it, folks say, nope, you went against the contract, so we're out. And then children and homes and, people are just kind of left. I mean, they could have said, okay, and while we're thinking, you can't do that. But it doesn't look like they were thinking about going that far. It just seemed like they were saying halt. And then everybody was just supposed to just stop and don't question them or whatever. And then again, like I said, they wanted to prevent, any type of potential delays or appeals that President Trump had a right to do. So this part was scary. The next one, consider an executive authority in gray areas while the Impoundment Control Act is clear. Past administrations have found ways to delay or reallocate funds within legal limits. The judge may have wanted to carefully determine if Trump's pause was a clear violation of the law or if there's a legal loophole being exploited. Basically meaning if he found a loophole and is taking advantage of that loophole. Let's just hope there is none and that someone didn't say, hey, here's a loophole. So for those like me who were wondering, like, no, just tell him no. Why can't you just say no, it can't be done and we can move forward? Chatty Patty says that, yes, based on legal precedent, the president does not have the power to withhold funds Congress has appropriated, but courts move cautiously, even in seemingly obvious cases, to ensure all arguments are heard and to prevent further delays through procedural appeals. So I said, okay, I get it. And then it said that, likely the final ruling will be that, he cannot uphold this pause and block the funding. But again, like I said, he's got a lot of people kind of in his corner, some that he's put there. And I've heard someone say today during the confirmation for RFK that, some of them were put there in Congress. So I don't know. But, I don't put anything past anything when it comes to politics. So we will see. And FYI, the Impoundment Control Act of 1974 was due to President Nixon, and you guys can research that. Lastly, on this, it stated that when the funds were transferred and approved and it was said that things, okay, fine, they can, stop the funds or they can, reallocate the funds someplace else. It couldn't be to a totally different department. So in other words, they can't take the money from HUD or from Meals on Wheels and then put the money in the military or put the money in HUD. Like, it had to be within HUD. So if you take the money from, let's say, Section 8, then you have to put it someplace else that's more needed in HUD. If you take the money from Meals on Wheels, it has to be from, someplace else, I guess in agriculture, whatever. It just has to be, someplace in that department. You can't take it and put it in a whole other different department. I guess it needs to still make a difference within that means and not, take it and allocate it someplace else. It has to be within that department or that area. So that pretty much concludes any stress that I had for temporarily until they, and hopefully while I am speaking, they have decided to say like, no, Trump, you can't do that. But that just means that he and his people will probably be hard at work at jumping on the Republicans to, change it for next year, whenever his policies are supposed to take place, because I don't know how many years Biden signed things over for, especially since we know that some of the things that the presidents do spill over into the new presidency. Obama's, remember Trump tried to turn over Obama's things that he had put in order, and most of them he was not able to. Some of them I think he was. And then the same with Biden. There were certain things that Trump put in, but I don't know that Biden tried to turn many of them. I'm sure those that he could, he did, unless it made sense. I know when Trump had stopped foods and everything, remember they were on the ships out in the water, and we were like, wait, what's going on? Why the price is so high? And they said, well, because, they weren't letting the food come in. And so, and the products and necessities come in, they were just kind of sitting out on ships in the water. And we were like, well, why? And we didn't understand why. And then we thought, okay, we can't wait till Biden becomes president, because then, he's going to stop that and bring it in, and then the prices will go down. And well, those things stayed on the water. They didn't come in for a good while. And I remember looking like month after month after month, because I'm thinking that once they come, companies will reduce their prices because, I'm thinking that their prices are high because of supply and demand. The demand is on the ships, but they're not letting the ships in. Once the supplies come in, then they won't be in demand anymore. There'll be an influx of them, and maybe we'll have some sales. This is what I'm thinking with my knowledge of, business and how things go. And then they just stayed there for so long. I can't remember exactly how long, but I know it was a very long time. And then people were, blaming, because, I can't remember who they were blaming, but my thing was this happened during Trump. And, they were blaming Trump, but I was like, okay, this happened during Trump. But when Biden became president, he could easily go and say, okay, the ball, because they were trying to say the ball was dropped. Trump stopped, after January 6th situation, with them storming, the White House or whatever. They were saying that, things that Trump dropped the ball, and they were blaming him. And I'm like, okay, fine. But they're both going to, in my opinion, they're both going to have to carry this, because even though Trump may have stopped being president a little early because he was upset about the results, when Biden came on, he should have picked up the ball. I understand how things go, but if you and the Democrats are going to say that Trump dropped the ball, why didn't you come on board and say, okay, people need to eat, let's bring them ships in. Let's, we'll worry about whatever reason we had to do that, or he felt he had to do that. We'll worry about that later. Let's get that food in so we can meet the supply on demand. And maybe all the money that everybody had to spend before, maybe, now they can start to get it back, because there'll be such an influx of the food because it's been sitting there so long that, the companies will have to, the retailers or whatever, like your supermarkets, they'll have to reduce the price because they got to beat those expiration dates, And so, and I just kept waiting for Biden to do it, and it was never done. And I said, okay, no, we can't just blame the previous administration. He has to take some accountability. And that's when I started thinking to myself, and I don't know if it's true or not, but you hear people say, oh, they're all into it together, the Democrats and the Republicans, they're putting on a front. And I don't know that because those would be some really great Oscar-winning performances if they really were putting on a front. I do believe there's some tension between them and they have their own agendas. But I do believe that there's some things they probably really agree on and they just don't tell us. And I began to think, like, is that one of them? Because if anything that Biden did wrong that was horrible and had us up in arms, you expect when Trump comes in, especially how aggressively he came in, even prior to even, starting January 20th, you expect him to come in like food prices. I've heard some people say who voted for him. I'm on YouTube like a nutcase, and I'm seeing a lot of people say, wait a minute, how many days has it been? He's supposed to make the prices go down. They wanted him to make the prices go down more than they wanted him to get rid of the immigrants. The immigrants were probably like the second or the third thing, but they really wanted the prices to go down. Not even looking at gas, they were looking at the prices of food and necessities. And because he said we're going to take care of all of that and knock the previous administration, they don't even want to hear him knock the previous administration and talk about what he's doing versus what they did. They just want those prices to go down. And once those prices go down, now we can talk about everything else. That's the American people's main thing. And it doesn't matter if they're under the poverty level, if they're middle class, that we don't have it. Can you imagine you get a raise, but as well as you get a raise, they raise the price of your medical insurance. They raise the price of your life insurance and your short-term disability, long-term disability, all the things that you pay into out of your paycheck every week. Not only did they give you the increase in your pay, but then they raised the prices of those, of your contribution to those insurances. You're like, well, what the heck did you give me the raise for? And that's how people feel, especially those on disability. Like, okay, you gave them a raise in their monies, but then you raised the amount of the Medicare. What was the sense? They did that during Obama. I said, what was the sense? And he said, well, because then this way you won't feel the hit of the Medicare. I don't care. I don't want to feel the hit, but I don't want to break even. Why give me extra money? And you see, so I don't know. It's a horrible thing, because these are people's lives and they pay taxes. And it's like some people have even said it. It's like highway robbery in your face because it's supposedly legal because it's signed that it's okay to do, And so we do have to do better. And so let's just hope that things get better. Let's pray on it for those of us who pray. I don't know what to say, but I just know that this was kind of bothering me. And it still kind of is, because I don't know if they've come to a decision as to what they're going to do. And then I don't know what's next on the agenda. And I'm like, oh my God, 4 years of this, wondering what's going to be struck down, how things are going to affect us, because they always seem to hit us in the pocket, right? So anyway, that's it. Hopefully the information that I shared spared some people the stress of it all. I won't wait to put this episode out, because I know people like myself who are into entertainment and arts and maybe some other things who, have strayed away from politics. They just don't know what's going on, and what little that they're hearing on social media is probably really stressing them out. So I just wanted to put this here. I will put this on my podcast episode. It's already connected to YouTube, so it will be there. And then I think I'm going to go ahead and put this on social media as well, because I think that people need this information. And I'm more concerned about, people, because I saw how it was making me anxious. So I'm more concerned about people not getting anxious and stressed out, because again, COVID left us on a scale of 1 to 10 stress level, 10 being a high stress level. COVID's left us at a 7. We were happy that things went down, but we lost a lot of people that we knew, and then we lost even more people in the country, and around the world. So again, I just wanted to give this information. Sharing is caring, and so I'm just sharing. Please share this information with anyone who may have questions or concerns. And this is just to make you feel a little bit more comfortable about how things are supposed to happen, and per ChatGPT, because it was just easier for me than Googling. And so it got straight to it instead of me reading a bunch of fluff. And so the next thing that I want to do is talk about the jobs of the Senate and the jobs of Congress, because, again, when we have a president in office where things begin to be challenging or scary, it seems like that's the best thing for me. It always worked for me. Like, okay, let me go back and read about their jobs and their responsibilities again, just so that I can know who's supposed to do what. So this way, if something passed, I know who's responsible. But anyway, again, sharing is caring, and so I'm just sharing. Please share this with anybody else that you feel, may be concerned about what's going on and why. And again, the next the next episodes I'm going to put out is the jobs of the Senate and the jobs of the House of Representatives. Depending on how long it is, it may be one episode, or I may break it up into 2. But I know that, there are some people out there like me who want to know what in the heck is going on and who is responsible. So this is Andrea, and I'm just saying.